Thank you. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever applies to you. Naturally, evening is what applies to me. You thought that was going to be the only Halloween reaction this year. No. We're going to do round 2 of our Halloween reactions. And this one is to Ice Nine Kills Stabbing in the Dark. Firstly, because it sounds gruesome as hell, and secondly, because it came pretty bloody close to winning our Halloween poll for 2021. So, let's get into it, I guess. Oh no! I need to put my headset on. You may be wondering, Vampire Julia, are you drunk? The answer is no. Alright, let's keep going.
In calculated silence, captivated by the violence, I'll replay from 15 years ago to
Clowns.
an evil evolution will bring a feeble institution to its knees. Oh, doctor, can't you see that when the hands of fate from the midnight hour behind this mask of hate, done the devil's power? These are the devil's
Oh! There is so much going on. I simply have to pause there because if I go any further, I might forget what happened in the beginning. So, we opened with what sound like not one, but 2 tenor vocalists. And I will have to go back to double check this, just in case my brain is getting confused between when someone has a mask on and when someone has a mask off. So, we will be going back to re-listen to that, but I love the ambience that they set in the beginning and the fact that they actually start with the clean vocals, because I truly feel like a harsh vocal simply amplify whatever raw emotion you're wanting to feed into the lyric. And we have a couple of those extreme vocals that are being demonstrated as we go through. We have some of those higher sounds coming through, which to me lean more towards that fry scream sound that you might get. And then it actually goes up a little bit higher in one part, and then that becomes more of that schmeagly sound, which I've described before in some of my previous harsh vocal reactions. In this particular example, we don't have as much pitch involved. In fact, I don't think I hear much of that pitch being involved, particularly in the higher sound at all. So I just want to go back and I want to re-listen because we transition from a cleaner vocal in the beginning. We're not using any harsh vocal effects or distortion from our first vocalist. And then in our second vocalist, or what I believe to be the second vocalist, we have a little bit more constriction. And in that constriction comes a darker tonality. So let's go back and we'll re-listen to that.
by the violence, I'll replay from 15 years ago today. An evil evolution will bring a feeble institution to its knees. Oh, doctor, can't you see?
So that definitely sounds like we've got 2 tenors harmonizing with each other. So let's go back and re-listen to that. It could be track because we can't essentially see visually where that second vocalist is, but I do think that they sound like 2 separate vocalists there as opposed to the same vocalist layered, but I could very well be wrong on that point. It's more the tonality approach that each voice is taking is just ever so slightly different. So let's go back and re-listen to that.
Feeble institution to its knees. Oh, doctor, can't you see that when the hands of fate from the
That one is definitely different.
midnight hour, behind this mask of hate, on the devil's power.
Yeah.
These are the devils!
Yeah, so it sounds like there we've got this beautifully live layering sound that's happening from two separate vocalists. I do believe it's two separate vocalists, but please feel free in the comments to let me know if I have in fact visualized this wrong, and in fact it is a layered one vocalist, because I'm more than happy to be proved wrong. I think it's exceptional when people are able to manipulate their voices in different ways, but to me at this point it definitely sounds like it does lean more towards the idea of two separate vocalists, one who's taking care of those highs there and another that's taking care of more of our mid edging towards our low scream sounds. So I'm definitely enjoying that contrast there. Again, it just hits with so much more impact to have that dual harsh vocal open this next section of the song. I've had people ask before, how do you determine the pitch within a harsh vocal? Your pitch is going to be determined by the shape within the vocal tract itself. So if you've watched my videos before, you would know that we tend to break up the vocal tract into the laryngopharynx, the oropharynx, and the nasopharynx. Laryngo meaning the space above the larynx, oro meaning the space behind the mouth, and naso meaning the space behind the nasal passage. So these are all part of the vocal tract. Now, for men, the vocal tract tends to be a lot deeper, so you may be able to, and in fact, you will be able to get some of those lower tonality sounds from a male vocalist compared to a female vocalist. But that being said, that's not a hard and fast rule. There are definitely some females who have very impressive depth to their range, and part of that will be their own individual anatomy and physiology at work. Anyway, in this example, it's called a formant frequency. So formant is the pitch of the space. If you're not familiar with formants, I strongly recommend going and watching my Unleash the Archers video, because at the end there I break down both fundamental frequency, harmonics, and formant frequencies, and how those formant frequencies actually work. But simple explanation of formant frequencies would be, you know how if you have a water bottle and it's filled halfway up with water and you go, "Ooh," and it produces a sound. Well, the bottle doesn't have vocal folds, so it can't produce that pitch itself. That's actually the pitch of the space, the cavity within the bottle. As the air moves through it, it ricochets against different air molecules and produces a tone or a pitch. If we fill that bottle further up, the pitch will rise because the space is getting smaller. If we empty the bottle out, the pitch will lower, and that's because the space is getting larger. So for these harsh vocals, if you're hearing a high frequency through that sound and there's no true vocal folds involved, that means that the pharynx, or the resonating tract that the sound is moving through, is smaller. Whereas if you hear something that's lower, that means the vocal tract is lower and wider. Now, this is only if the true folds are not involved, and there are some people that can absolutely use almost like a combo harsh vocal effect. Anyways, let's continue, because this is already super exciting for me. Love the ambience that they've set up. There's almost like a boyish quality to the cleaned vocals in the beginning. You can clearly hear that they're both tenors. They sit very comfortably in that higher, lighter tonality, but it's still a full sound. That's usually an indicator of a tenor, whereas a baritone or a bass that's trying to get a higher sound, the timbral quality it differs. But in this case, we can clearly hear some lighter tenor work occurring. Anyways, let's continue, because we still have heaps of this song left, and I am definitely 3/4 of the way through her wine bottle, so we must finish this before we get to the end. No, headset on first, you dingbat. Alright.
Mask of hate, on the devil's power. These are the devils!
So you can hear it starts with those high, harsh vocals, and then we wind up with the mid to low sound coming in right there. God, it hits hard. Let's listen to that again.
These are the devils!
Oh, all right. So I just want to pause there because there's only so long that we can build a tension point before it has to release. And so within those lulls within the music, as we sit within them, we are expecting that build as it goes. So when it actually lands, we get this massive amount of musical satisfaction. Every single human being does have a sense of time, whether you're musically trained or not, it doesn't really matter. You are going to have a sense of time of when something feels slightly more empty and stretched compared to when something feels really compressed and quick. Something that I think is really clever within this particular song is they are synchronizing a lot of their higher tonality screaming moments with a fast reaction within the instrumentation. They're also integrating those clean vocals within every now and again. And I think that that actually lends itself to not only building more tension, but also making it more, I don't want to use the word palatable because I think that this kind of music, the gateway into this kind of music, for it to show up for the general populace on like top 40 radio alongside Rihanna and Adele, like it's probably not going to happen. But those clean vocals allow it to be more of a gateway into those harsher sounds and for people to realize how they react to it. It almost gives you a little bit of a breather, both within the space of the music, but also by integrating some of those clean vocals. That's just my opinion. Let me know if you guys feel like that is the case. Do you feel like bands which incorporate both harsh vocals and clean vocals are those sort of your gateway bands into the more harsh singing styles where there is dominantly harsh vocals the entire time? Because I feel like that's not necessarily been part of my journey because you guys sort of threw me in the deep end when it came to harsh vocals. I hadn't actually listened to any of the metal bands that incorporate harsh vocals leading up to my YouTube journey. So you guys have kind of been the guiding factor for me with this kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments below. Did you start off super heavy? Were you led into it by friends? Did you listen to a song that had majority clean vocals leading into the harsh vocals? But anyway, I suppose this tangent links us back to what's happening here, where there are moments where they re-include those harsh vocals. It is sounding a little bit more M1 bass. We're definitely not in a falsetto or a second register coming from our lead vocalist here. If anything, as far as registration is concerned, we are more in a mix, but it's definitely a first register dominant mix here. We're lengthening, but we are not skidding as much mass as we would have to in order to be in second register. So if you're familiar with first register and second register as far as vibratory mechanisms are concerned, you would know mechanism 1, which is first register, is that full fold contact, and second register is that top fold contact. Anyways, let's continue. Ooh. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, I want to go back for that. Hold up, are there actually 3 vocalists working here? I want to go back and rewatch that. Perhaps I've been blind this whole time. We got Mars. Okay, he's doing the high screams. And those cleans. Oh, such a good integration. Okay, but let's go on right there. Oh. Alright.
When the hands of fate fall on the midnight hour, behind this masquerade, I've done the devil's power.
Oh, such cool harmonies going on in there. And it's a light line as well. It's not an overwhelming harmony. Sometimes with the higher harmonies, it cuts through too much in the mix. And that is not what is happening here. This is really cool. It is hitting Vampire Julia right in the hell yes. So we are going to go back and re-listen to that because that's really cool. Ah, what harmony are they doing there? It's so well balanced without being intrusive. So sometimes harmonies, particularly ones that come over the top, can be so intrusive they actually overwhelm that melody line. Devil's power. Alright, so that's a high harmony. Wait, fine on the piano first. I've had a little too much wine to be able to remember it. Devil's power. Devil's power. Alright, so that's our harmony.
The hands of fate fall on the midnight behind this masquerade. Out on the devil's
power. Devil's power. Alright, so the harmony that we have there. So we're working in parallel sixth here. In this case, because it's a sixth, it's not really feeling more of that ye old, whereas if you get your parallel fourths, so your parallel fifths, it will start to sound like that. But in this case, I think it sounds really cool. So let's go back and re-listen to that. Throughout this verse, one of the things that I'm absolutely adoring, and I love this particularly in male vocalists that sit in this style, and of course female vocalists as well, but I hear it more in the male vocalists, perhaps because I've just listened to more male vocalists. Anyway, so one of the things I absolutely love is the constriction darkness that you hear in this primary vocalist as we go through the chorus. So I want to listen to that again because I flipping love it.
when the hands of fate fall on the midnight behind this masquerade. Out on
There's that constriction that you hear in that lower vocalist. I love it. And I do think perhaps that there are three vocalists that are actually contributing to this song because we can see here there's this gentleman here who's on the mic, then there was another gentleman who had the what looked like a plaid shirt on. I could be wrong. Please let me know how many vocalists does this group normally work with because I am more than keen to explore more of their music, and that's not just the wine talking. That is this kind of music really, I guess, hitting a chord. Hitting a chord with me, and it does lend itself to more of like perhaps a throatier sound. But he's not going so high that I would be like at all concerned for him as a vocalist, not from what I've heard so far. And if they are sharing between three vocalists, that is an excellent way for managing vocal fatigue if you're on tour, if you have more than one vocalist. Anyway, let's get going. I want to hear that section again though. So we definitely had more of that fry in the belt there. Holy moly. Loving this build. We have the distortion coming through in the mix anyway, but damn. So we had the distortion coming in the music itself, but also within the mix for the vocal. And then he himself was progressing into distortion as a vocalist. So we went from more of a clean sound, lent more towards that speech quality, almost calling aspect. So if you've ever called out to someone, then it'll be similar to that, because he's not really, I would say, he's not really approaching it as a singy sound. Regardless, we have it being more on the clean side in the beginning, leading up into that distortion from the fry. Let's listen to that again. And then landing into something that sounds a lot lower, like a similar feeling where we have that lift, that extreme engagement from the fry sound, lifting us up into bah. It's so cool. It's really engaging as well. So let's go back, feel that tension building as we go from clean to fry, the distortion in that fry, dropping us into what feels more like a breakdown as we head towards the end. Whoa. Wow. What an ending. Dang. Just straight up murdering someone on stage. Whew. Wow. All right. Wow. So we've hit the end there. It definitely felt probably more like a breakdown towards the end there, because we went back to that chorus even after we hit that low. Yeah, I would say the end probably felt more like a breakdown. Anyways, we see a resurgence of the vocal technique that I discussed earlier, in particular towards the clean vocals, because something's a little lighter, and then we do have that more constricted sound coming from the second vocalist. And then those harsh vocals just sort of sealing the deal there at the end. Story-wise, it's definitely spooky. I'm feeling unsettled. I think I'll slink back to my cave and watch some rom-coms. Anyways, I've probably spoken to all I wanted to speak to, with that good contrast between clean vocals and harsh vocals, and it does look like it's actually split up amongst 3 people. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could have misseen that. It's hard to sometimes gauge everything, particularly when there's harsh vocals in the mix on the first listen. So if there are more than one vocalist, it feels to me like there's actually 3. Listening to the clean vocalist, I'm listening to the clean vocalist that uses more constriction, has a little bit more depth to the sound coming through there. And then we have the harsh vocalist. I do feel like our first clean vocalist was handling the highs of the scream, and then we had a completely different vocalist handling the mids and the lower sounding screams. So sharing elements of that vocal load with other people. You have the layers live, which is sick, instead of it coming from a recording. But you also have the fact that you're not necessarily having to sing all of the time. This can come in really, really handy if you have a heavy vocal load set and a long tour. So that, I don't know whether that'll be interesting for you guys. Often it's actually the after parties that contribute to wearing any vocal fatigue, sometimes in the actual singing itself. So just bear that in mind. I don't know if you're touring artists or if you're musicians or what, but just be mindful of how much talking you actually do at after parties and with fans and stuff, because that can be what really wears your voice down. So long as, of course, you're correctly monitored on stage, because no monitoring, your odds of overblowing your voice go way the hell up. Anyways, that is it from me today. I hope that you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to give it a like, click the subscribe button and the bell notification beside it for more just like this one. As usual, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are staying healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye! Take somebody's eyes out with these. Most likely my own.